Judge not. Two words, probably the most quoted verse in the entire Bible, and almost certainly the most misunderstood. People use it to shut down conversations, end debates, and silence anyone who dares call something wrong. But here's the question nobody asks. What did Jesus actually mean when he said it? Because when you read what comes right before it, right after it, and understand who he was talking to and why, the meaning changes completely. Today, in context, changes everything. Matthew 7, verse 1. Before we look at what Jesus meant, let's look at how the verse is used today. Scenario 1. Someone points out that a behavior is harmful or sinful. Response, judge not. Scenario 2. A Christian expresses a moral conviction. Response, judge not. Scenario 3. Anyone evaluates anything negatively. Response, judge not. In modern usage, Matthew 7, verse 1 has become a universal conversation stopper. It means you have no right to call anything wrong, ever. No moral evaluation, no accountability, no standards. The problem is, that's not what Jesus said. And reading the passage carefully makes that unmistakably clear. Matthew 7, verse 1 says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged." Most people stop there, but Jesus keeps talking. Verse 2, "For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." Verse 3, "Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye?" Verse 4, "How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own eye?" And then, verse 5, this is the verse that changes everything. Jesus says, "You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." Did you catch that? Jesus doesn't say don't remove the speck. He says do it, but deal with yourself first. The command is not to stop judging. The command is to judge yourself before you judge others. The Greek word behind judge here is krino, and this word has a range of meanings. It can mean to condemn, to sentence, to evaluate, or to discern. The context determines which meaning applies. Jesus is not telling his followers to stop evaluating or discerning. He uses krino himself throughout the Gospels. In John 7, verse 24, he says, "Stop judging by mere appearances and make a right judgment." In Luke 12, verse 57, he says, "Why don't you judge for yourselves what is right?" What Jesus is targeting in Matthew 7 is a specific kind of judging. The hypocritical, self-righteous condemnation of others while ignoring your own failures. That's the plank in the eye problem. Not discernment, not accountability. Hypocrisy. Here's something almost nobody mentions when quoting this verse. Matthew 7, verse 1 is not a standalone teaching. It sits inside the Sermon on the Mount, which runs from Matthew 5 through Matthew 7. It's one continuous discourse. And in the very same sermon, Jesus tells his followers, "You are the light of the world. Let your light shine." He tells them to be peacemakers, to pursue righteousness, to be different from the world. This is not a community that avoids moral evaluation. In fact, just a few verses after judge not, in Matthew 7, verse 15, Jesus says, "Watch out for false prophets." How do you watch out for false prophets without making a judgment? And in verse 16, "By their fruit you will recognize them." Fruit inspection requires judgment. The Sermon on the Mount is calling people to a higher standard, not to moral paralysis. So what is Jesus actually warning against? 3 things. First, hypocrisy. Holding others to a standard you don't hold yourself to. The plank and speck image is almost comedic. A person walking around with a beam in their eye, trying to perform eye surgery on someone else. Jesus is exposing the absurdity of moral self-righteousness. Second, a condemning spirit. There's a difference between saying this action is harmful and saying you are worthless and beyond hope. The first is discernment. The second is condemnation. Jesus reserves condemnation for God alone. Third, the wrong measure. Verse 2, "With the measure you use, it will be measured to you." If you are merciless in judging others, expect no mercy yourself. The call is to hold others with the same grace and accountability you would want applied to yourself. So what does judge not actually mean? It means don't be a hypocrite. Don't condemn others for sins you tolerate in yourself. Don't adopt a posture of superiority that ignores your own need for grace. And don't render the kind of final, soul-level verdict that belongs only to God. What it does not mean: stop thinking, stop discerning, stop calling things right or wrong. Stop holding one another accountable in love. In fact, Jesus ends this section by telling his followers to do exactly that, after dealing with themselves first. Context changes everything. 2 words, judge not, can mean almost anything when ripped from their setting. Put them back in Matthew 7, inside the Sermon on the Mount, spoken by a Jesus who inspects fruit and warns about wolves. And they mean something precise, something challenging, and something far more useful than a conversation stopper. Next time, in context changes everything. Jeremiah 29, verse 11. I know the plans I have for you. Who was God actually talking to? And does it still apply to you? See you then.